every time. Hi, y'all. Hi. Welcome to the writer's room. Welcome with my beautiful co-host. Oh wait, we were supposed to keep Richard off until. Oh heck, hang on. Hi, welcome to the writer's room.
Oh my gosh, I closed my eyes and didn't realize that that you made him go.
Welcome to the writer's room. I am your host, Spirit, and with my dear friends Tiffany and Morgan, we do have a guest today. You have no idea who they are. I am going to let my co-hosts introduce themselves, and then we shall bring our guest on. Tiffany, take it away.
Hi everybody, I'm Tiffany TL Russ Lifestyle on all the interwebs. I write under TL Russ and Des Lorraine, and I'm here all the time. And I stream every other Thursday, give or take. And I also do Small Town World with our good friend Mia, the Vixen of Fiction, once a month. So come hang out with us if you are writing or creating a small town world to put your characters into.
And hello, my name is Morgan Lee. I'm an indie author and a freelance editor. I have 2 books, first 2 in a dark fantasy trilogy. I am co-host of The Writer's Room, as you see here, and then also host Author Tube Poetry Open Mic 3 times a year with author JC Carpenter. Our next one is April 27th. The form is on both of our community tabs, so if you want to sign up to read a poem, please do so. And that's me.
Okay, well, let's say hey to some folks, and then we will pull our esteemed guest up here. Margaret was first, our dear friend Margaret. She is live right now over on her channel, so check her out.
Oh, no, she's done.
Oh, she finished. Oh, okay. Well, Margaret finished. So just kidding, never mind. But be sure to check out Margaret anyway, because she's awesome sauce.
And I hope your headache feels better, Margaret.
Yes, same. Richard is here, although you're going to see more of him. Eva, hello, Eva. How are you, friend? Yes, fancy countdown. It always scares me. Martin, I haven't seen you in a month of Sundays. How are you, friend? Yeah, kicking him off. Surprise to me. Yes. Hey, Gary, I haven't seen you in so long. Good to see you, friend. Esther, hi, Esther. Emma, hi. Let's see if I got. Whoa. People talking. Oh, wait. Happy birthday, Gary.
Oh, happy birthday,
Gary. Happy birthday. I hope you have a very happy day. What a great day to talk books and stories with Richard for your birthday. Okay, so we're going to pull on our great guest, Richard. He has written a story. It is fantasy. We got to read it. Well, not all of it, because it's epic. And by epic, I mean length and girth. So we're going to bring up Richard to talk about his story. So without further ado, Richard Holliday, welcome.
Please don't remove me again.
I won't. Sorry about that. It's just been a long time since I've done this. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm here. I'm glad to be here.
Good.
Give us about my books.
Yeah, give folks your intro. Tell everybody all about
yourself.
Oh,
hello. I'm me. Everyone knows who I am at this point. I wrote this. Then I wrote this. Then I wrote this. And I've got some more stuff coming out soon. But today we're going to be talking about my first foray into fantasy, which is very exciting / scary / confusing. Can we ban Martin already?
Right there with Farage, Martin.
Oh, controversy.
Go ahead, Richard. Go ahead.
So yeah, I'm just kind of here enjoying the vibes at the moment, not really pushing anything at the moment, just kind of, that sort of thing.
All of the links for Richard and my lovely co-hosts are below.
Yeah, I do newsletters that apparently Emma says are really good.
Yes, and the newsletters, links, and websites and all the things, everything should be below. So look for all of that below.
Yeah, so yeah, this is kind of just my kind of dipping my toe into kind of fantasy land, which is exciting because I know virtually nothing about fantasy. So I'm just making up my own rules at this point.
So What do you want to tell us about this story before Tiffany does a little epic dramatic reading? And then Morgan and I are going to do interpretive dance while she's doing the reading.
I will be doing neither of those things. What can I say? This is like a kind of thriller that takes place in a magical world that's undergoing an industrial revolution. So is it steampunk? Is it fantasy? Who knows at this point? But I've had a lot of fun kind of creating the world. And yeah, just enjoying being just putting it together. It's been a lot of fun, which is the main thing. I wanted to write something that was not based on planet Earth because I was kind of bored of that.
Yeah.
For various reasons. So this is a nice challenge. It takes place in a fantasy world where I get to make up everything, which is probably going to horrify Martin in many ways.
What inspired it?
That's a really good question. I just kind of had the idea that it's a kind of an interest. Most kind of like epic fantasies, the kind of witches and wizards, swords and sorcerers kind of thing. And I kind of thought, what would be an interesting take on that? And I kind of like the idea of a magical world that's actually advanced a bit and is actually undergoing this kind of like industrial revolution. It kind of sets up a lot of potential for conflict. So I think that's going to be kind of interesting. I'm enjoying the development so far. So far, in what I've written so far, it's been a bit of a slow burn. It's almost a bit of a political thriller. There's lots of backstabbing and stuff going on, but it's going to set up for some pretty epic kind of like clashes and battles, which I'm looking forward to. We've got a protagonist who is kind of overlooked by a lot of people because he doesn't live up to his kind of family's expectations. But he's going to get to show in quite a major way that those people were very wrong. So that's hopefully going to be something people can take away from it. But yeah, it's just been a lot of fun to kind of dip my toe into this. Also, not being funny, fantasy is really in at the moment. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yes. So, okay, Martin's question.
If you created the world, are there characters who worship you as a god? Well, the real question is, why aren't you worshipping me as a god, Martin? Because we all know that is the truth. It's kind of interesting because the kind of take on religion in this book is kind of very kind of hands off. Like there is like a religion. Doesn't really take a prominent part. I tell you what, writing in a fantasy world means characters cannot say Jesus fucking Christ because Jesus Christ doesn't exist. Oh, I'm not supposed to swear, am I?
Oh, you can do whatever you want here. Okay, Eva's question. Do you have a muse and why has it been?
I think Emma's very jealous there, and she doesn't wear jealousy well, does Emma? Oh dear. I mean, if you want to know my kind of inspiration for this book, there is a book that I read recently. Let me see if I can. Oh, it's this book, Fogbound by N.J. Alexander. He's lovely, by the way. You should go talk to him. This is a really accessible kind of like fantasy book, so I'm trying to get it out of wherever Eva's comment there is. Go and read that. It's a really accessible kind of fantasy story. Nick's a great guy, very inspirational. I thought, you know what? I read this and thought, this didn't scare the shit out of me. I understood what was going on. Let's do it. It kind of pushed me kind of over the edge to give it a go.
Okay. So have you ever written fantasy before?
Not ever, really. I went through a whole kind of period where I didn't even read fantasy. So I'm really kind of like at the beginner kind of stage because I didn't like Lord of the Rings, or as I used to call it, Board of the Rings. That book sent me to sleep several times. But yeah, I kind of thought, you know what? How hard could it be? That's actually quite hard.
That's my next question. So did you do a lot of reading of fantasy before you started drafting?
Was I meant to? Because I didn't.
No, heavens no. That's not.
I kind of wanted to almost go in almost blind, as it were, without being influenced by other authors to kind of stamp my own rules on it. Is this just fantasy or is it romantasy? I really hate the term romantasy.
Okay. So is that a no?
No, it's not a romantasy. I mean, there will be some romantic elements, probably. I've already kind of set up a love triangle between the protagonist, hello, and the protagonist's name is not hello, by the way. That's me just saying hello there. I've already kind of set up a love triangle between the protagonist, his childhood friend, the princess, who he clearly fancies, and his boyhood best friend, who the princess fancies when they first meet.
Love it.
Oh, by the way, in answer to your question, Emma, yes, there will be kissing, and Eva, yes, there will be sex.
Oh. Huh. Okay. Hope that's the bit Tiffany.
Possibly in that order.
Oh, well, good. As it should be. Tiffany, are you ready to read?
I'm still trying to figure out the order. No. Okay.
Oh, you can talk, Emma.
Alrighty. So this I'm reading the part in the prologue when Nicholas comes to the castle, I'm assuming, or where the princess lives. Is there anything you need to set up before I read? Okay. And I apologize in advance for all the butchering of names. Okay. Master Cluster, the gate guard said, surprised. What can I do for you? Is Her Royal Highness in today? The guard rifled through some papers on the wooden desk inside the equally wooden hut, just inside the marble palace walls. Yes? Good. You did receive her instructions. I'm allowed free passage in and out. The guard nodded. I did, but I'll have to log this. There's all sorts going on, what with His Majesty being ill. Indeed, Nicholas said with a sigh. I'm sure the princess will find my visitation most comforting. The guard nodded, then looked down his nose as if to say, right? You're wasting your time, boyo, massively. I have no idea what you're talking about. Sure, the guard heaved, pulling the pedestrian gate open. I'll have to tell your father, you know. Nicholas raised his hands in mock outrage. He knows the princess and I have known each other since we were kids. It was his idea. The guard shrugged back. Nicholas bore him no malice. He was a man doing a job at an interesting time for Nick Block. The king was ill. The princess, his firstborn and heir, was outspoken in court. Things that hadn't changed for decades could change very quickly. The method Nicholas chose to enter the palace didn't. He never entered through the imperial portico, under the 3-story columns and awning. Few did. The entrance was reserved for those the royal family wanted to impress. Nicholas didn't need and wasn't intended to be impressed. He walked through the portico, along the gray flank wall of the palace, coming to a more austere, normal-sized doorway. It was closed. He knocked. A footman emerged, opening the door with a creak. Master Cluster, he said, Her Royal Highness is expecting me, Nicholas said, almost truthfully. Are you going to let me stand in the rain? The footman rolled his eyes. Surprised, young lord? They haven't given you a key yet. Nicholas stepped in, feeling the heat from the interior against his damp cloak. Can you get me one then? The footman smiled, wise to Nicholas' cheek. You're going to get us all in a lot of hot water. I bathed once today already, Nicholas said, walking through the taut vestibule into the landing. The great staircase beckoned, leading upwards toward opulent rooms and apartments. I think twice a day might be a little over the top, don't you think? The footman shook his head with a smile. Good to see you, Nicholas. I'll fetch Her Royal. No need, Sir Lloyd. The voice cracked from the upper landing of the staircase. The footman, Sir Lloyd, turned and bowed instinctively. Nicholas did too. Your Royal Highness, Sir Lloyd said, staring to the carpet. Stand, sir, the voice said. You too, Nick. Nicholas obeyed, seeing Princess Christina on the upper landing, leaning against the balustrade. Her delicate face looked pained as she gripped the banister with clawed fingers. It's good to see you. Of course, Your Royal. I said stop, Nicholas, Christina said. Come, we have much to discuss. She waited until Nicholas nodded once at Sir Lloyd, who gestured towards the stairway. All theatrics. Nicholas was a friend of the heir to the throne, and had been since they were no higher than the balustrade that Christina seemingly clung to for dear life. He walked up the stairs, taking them swiftly, cresting. Nicholas paused. Christina held out a hand. Nicholas took her hand and knelt, kissing it once, then released it. My princess, Nicholas murmured. This is all completely unnecessary, she said. Yeah, Nicholas replied with a wink. Doesn't mean you don't love it, though. Shut up, Christina said, trying to conceal her own smile. Come on, we'll go through to my apartment. Sir Lloyd, she called the last command louder. Yes, ma'am. At ease, sir. Myself and Master Cluster will be in my apartment. Yes, my lady, Sir Lloyd said. This way, Christina directed, along the landing to the west wing of the palace. We've much to discuss.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Dun, dun, dun.
Really hard to do when you have Grammarly putting like lines and checks and things as you're reading. So if you heard pauses and random stuff, that was me trying to get over all the random squigglies on my computer
You did
screen.
really well, Tiffany. Well done.
That was good.
I was like, where's all this coming from? Stop. Go away.
Okay. So, first of all, Richard, what can we do? What do you want to hear from us before we rip it to shreds? I mean, give you feedback.
Before you rip it to pieces, it wasn't that bad, was it?
No. I just kidding. Just a little joke.
So I didn't send you the full prologue because that's 8,000 words, which is already a problem. I think we're going to talk about a little later on as to why I'm essentially purposefully overwriting this project quite a lot.
Yeah.
So my kind of strategy in writing this book, because it's going to be a big project, is to basically write lots and then basically pull out enough to form a book, as it were. So I'm basically laying out all my kind of scenes, and what I'll do when I want to make the sort of first proper draft, as it were, is pick out, right, I need that bit, that bit, that bit, that bit, that bit, boom, there you go. And there'll be a lot kind of left over, as it were. I guess you could say I'm kind of batch cooking this book.
Okay.
That's one way of looking at it.
Okay. You got some feedback people liked. So
Thank you very much.
good feeds.
So generally, what did you kind of feel? Did you kind of get a sense of the kind of characters, the world? Because I think with fantasy, especially fantasy and sci-fi, is the Jenga school of editing. I like that, Margaret. I want to steal that.
It is. I like that.
I'm totally going to steal that. I just want to kind of, because I think with fantasy, there's always a lot of kind of work to do up front with kind of world building, getting the characters, making sure the reader kind of understands what's going on. From your current read of what I sent over, do you kind of get an impression that you understand the world a bit? What I'm trying to sort of go with?
Do we want to go one at a time? Do we just want to go one round robin?
It would be nice.
I'll go first. So definitely world building, I think, yes, but you always do a good job with that. So, I think you always do a good job setting the scene and showing us the world. The only thing I would have said on world for me that I would have or the part that maybe surprised me a little bit in the prologue part was I didn't see as much fantastical stuff that I might have wanted to see in that first prologue. I wouldn't have necessarily read the prologue and known fantasy right away. Right. Now that's a personal thing in just the way, what I would have been looking for. But someone else might have had a different take on that if they were looking for more of a swords and epic, that kind of fantasy, right? So if that's more the way you're planning to go, then you might be nailing that. But if you were thinking of moving more in the realm of a magical or a even technological or steampunk or anything that in that I wouldn't have had as much of that from what I was reading. I got a lot of politics. I got a lot of
politics never.
Well, I mean, I got a lot of what was happening. You set up for me what was the stakes, what was important, and what I needed to know, right? But I didn't necessarily draw fantasy from that prologue, right? So that was the thing for me. So yes, so that was that for me. I will pass to Tiffany. World building.
I agree with Barrett. I think that you had a lot of world building in there that was really set up very nicely. Although I was a little confused, and maybe that was on my part, if I felt the world building more because I read the synopsis first. Like if I had read the prologue before I read the synopsis, would I have seen the same world building? And because I already did it the way I did it, I can't tell you. But I did feel the world building. I also agree with Barrett that I did not see the fantastical kind of fantasy elements that I expected at the beginning, but also to the point of the political. I almost feel like it is more of a political thriller than a fantasy. And like it could be billed as a political thriller with fantasy elements. Because even reading the synopsis, I think you have more, like I'm more intrigued by the political than I am about the fantasy world. Does that make sense? Because I was like, ooh, okay, so I don't want to give things away, but like there's like, ooh, there may be coups and there might be this, and oh, what is this person going to do? And how are we going to fight that? And stuff like that. And so I found that maybe more intriguing in the synopsis than necessarily the fantasy part.
Okay, that's fair enough. I appreciate where you're coming from there.
All right, so I agree with everything that has been said. I didn't feel fantasy in the prologue or in the first chapter. I only know it was fantasy because of the synopsis, and that there was going to be like elves and dwarves and how that was going to play into the political aspect of the story. So I wanted to ask what type of fantasy do you know you're going for? Like, is it more just technology based? Is there going to be magic and technology? Are there going to be is the princess, is she magical? I was a little confused.
Is she an elf?
Of what was she? Is she human? Is the political system are they humans, and the dwarves and the elves are like lesser than people who are, that's why they're doing the coup, to take over or something like that, or so I was a little confused in that front with the world building. And I just second the things that Barrett and Tiffany said, but that was my main thing of what type of fantasy are we going for? Is there anything in this world that is different from our world in the sense of I don't know, gravity, or is there anything
well, Gary asked, are there dragons
different? What's the difference
Who
between
knows?
this world? So those were my questions of world building.
Okay. That's all really good feedback, to be honest, because I kind of feel like as I'm writing this, I am leaning more into the kind of political kind of intrigue, court intrigue. It wasn't supposed to be this long, because the whole kind of crux is the king dies, his firstborn, the princess, through machinations of naughty people who are shadowy in the background, she gets kind of overlooked for the succession. And so that's the kind of inciting incident. Oh, hello, by the way. Hi, JC. So the kind of world we've got is we've got this kind of country that is, you've got the kind of humans, you've got the elves, which are the kind of magical kind of species, and you've got the dwarves, who are the kind of technological species, and you've got the humans that are basically holding it all together and preventing one faction and kind of taking kind of overall control, if that makes sense. So that's the kind of world we've got. It's kind of set 200 years after the big war that kind of founded this whole thing. So it's definitely, I think I can appreciate where it needs to be more kind of fantastical in the beginning. Maybe if we introduce some of the elves and the dwarves in the beginning, because this book mainly seems to be taking place in the capital city. I am trying to kind of move it out of the capital. As I'm writing it, I'm realizing I'm doing a lot of kind of walking around the palace scene, which are good, but we want to get out of there a little bit. So trying to kind of work on that. But yeah, I definitely appreciate your feedback, and I definitely think it's going to be a bit of the way I'm kind of approaching it is almost a bit like Game of Thrones, where it's more like the fantasy stuff in Game of Thrones, at least the TV show in the early series before it all went a bit up the creek. Kind of the fantasy stuff kind of takes a back seat to the kind of character drama, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of what my kind of goal so far is. I can definitely appreciate where I need to kind of stick some cogs on it in the beginning and just kind of really kind of bed down what kind of genre it is. I can appreciate when you're reading it from the start, it feels like a bit almost kind of like plain vanilla, if that makes sense. But yeah, as it's my kind of first kind of foray into this, I'm just kind of learning as I go, to be honest. So, yeah, that is my long rambling answer.
To your point of it being more of a, or you're looking at it a little bit right now as a character drama.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see more from Christina. Is that how you say her name? Is it
Christiana?
Christiana. Okay, because I forgot.
You're close.
Butchering names. But if she's the princess, and from what I get from the synopsis, she's got a whole character arc of, you know, badassery coming, for lack of a better way of saying it.
She's going to be a real badass, as you say.
Yeah. I'd like to see a little bit more from that in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not 100% that I buy from reading the synopsis. The person that we're supposed to end up with, even at this point, would go 3 months with her father being sick and not seeing him.
Yeah.
So
No,
I would like to see a little bit more in that, in her character, as well as, I mean, she's princess. She's heir to the throne. Like, you know, I want to feel that from her. I want to feel like that, you know, I get that Nicholas is a friend, and of course you wouldn't have those airs with somebody that's really close to you.
Mm-hmm.
But in talking with Sir Lloyd and talking with the cardinal guy, I can't remember his actual name.
Keep an eye on him, by the way.
Yeah, I would like to see a little bit more of kind of that. I know my position, and
Mm-hmm.
this is where I stand in my control. You know, like,
Yeah.
this is where I stand in my power, because I think to get to that point of where you have her at the end, she's got to, the weight of responsibility. She's got to start where you can see that in the progression.
Yeah.
And right now, I don't know if I buy that that's where she ends up.
Mm-hmm. Because I've tried to kind of portray her, certainly in later on, is that she's been brought up to be quite independent. And what she's kind of done is she's spent her kind of like formative years kind of building up this kind of public image, which then kind of comes back to bite her on the backside when the kind of powers that be realise that she's going to be queen, and they think, no, we can't accept this. And whether they're kind of like traditionalists that are kind of thinking we can't have our first queen because she's so radical, and then they go to radicals on the other side of the aisle, as it were. But yeah, I definitely want to kind of play into that she knows her place, she's comfortable in her place. Definitely your point where she's not appearing to challenge that her father, the king's been ill for 3 months. That's fair enough, because she certainly starts to challenge it kind of later on, especially with, by the way, the king dies, if you haven't realised it. She definitely starts to push back as things go on, and then she kind of feels that as she starts to assert her independence that she's been kind of brought up to, like what Esther said, she's been trained her whole life to kind of take over, so she feels quite comfortable in that role. She feels quite independent. She feels quite sort of, you know, strong in that. She eventually comes into conflict with the people that are trying to kind of push her down, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
See, I would have, like, I understand why you started the prologue kind of with Nicholas and the teacher giving that background of it. And I was really struggling with trying to figure out if Nicholas was our hero or if Christiana was our hero as I read through both parts. But I would have almost have liked to have seen maybe it start with her going to the cardinal, trying to see her father, and him being sick, and kind of coming in, and then maybe again, if she's human and the cardinal is like elf or dwarf or something like that, or if Nicholas is, like, seeing one of them maybe pull some type of power or some type of something in it to then hold her back, or to give her extra to try to get in to see her father or something, or her even sneak, like, even if she's not going to confront the cardinal because she's like has this personal or this public persona, maybe her sneaking in to see the father and then realizing something was going on.
Maybe he lets slip that something that she's not supposed to know about what's been going on, because if access to the king's been controlled, and she sneaks in, he can kind of say, oh, by the way, keep an eye on such and such, they've been doing X, Y, and Z. That's actually a really good idea. I like that. Well done. We're working on it.
Okay, so Other things, anything else
There's
specific?
lots of good questions in the chat.
Yeah, there's tons of questions in the chat. I'm going to pivot to those and let you answer some.
I agreed and then realized I was muted.
Okay, so one question. Oh, you answered this one. So some of these you've answered. I'm gonna. It's also heavy on political court intrigue. Def needs more fantasy jazz hands. Is there a caste system?
There's definitely a class system. There's definitely the upper class and the lower class. There's like the kind of the gentry and the people who get invited to court, the people who get all the kind of privilege, and then you get the kind of like generic kind of like, you know, serfs and you know, city dwellers who just toil away at their own thing, who don't really, quite frankly, care about what's happening at the top because they've got their own more kind of personal struggles to deal with. They just want to make sure they can go to work and provide for their kind of families, etc. They don't really care, you know, what's going on, as long as they don't get sort of shot by someone or etc. So that's kind of the system I'm going for. It's almost like the kind of upper kind of, you know, the more powerful upper echelons are totally disconnected from what's actually happening on the ground. They're not aware of that and they don't really care about it. They just see these as kind of pawns on a chessboard to move around, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
And is it based on species at all? Like this species is higher than this one, or is everyone? It's just.
I mean, what we're going to have is the elvish kind of species are definitely very like, you know, old school. They look at the dwarves and the humans with a bit of kind of like disdain, and over time that gets reciprocated. There's going to be a bit of sectarianism, shall we say, between the dwarves, the humans, and the elves. So by the time we come into this has been kind of bubbling along in the background for a number of years. So, and now people have decided to act, which means getting rid of the king, installing a king that's actually going to allow them to kind of be more radical, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying not to reflect what's going on in the States at the moment, but
okay, what about modern or modeling after a royal family or a dynasty we know of?
I wouldn't really say I've modelled it on any particular one. I guess you could say that Christiana's kind of like public image is a bit Princess Diana-ish.
Okay.
She's very aware that the public kind of love her and all that sort of stuff.
And it's like an international, or it's like a wide. Yeah. Okay.
And that's going to actually cause a lot of trouble when she gets kind of usurped later on in the book. It's like they have to kind of pretend that the new king, which is her younger brother, who's much more kind of malleable and impressionable. So they're going to have a bit of an uphill struggle to kind of sell him to the public.
Because she is preferred.
Yeah, and not be funny, the public have been expecting her to take over for years and years and years. Yeah. So when it doesn't happen, it's all a bit like, well, what's happened? What I've kind of done in a kind of sense is kind of built this into the kind of constitution of our kind of country.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it's not like an automatic succession, because I think it's like the elves didn't want to. Basically, it's a constitutional thing where when the king dies, the ruling council has to basically nominate a successor from the available kind of heirs, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So I've kind of built a system that's kind of almost deliberately not perfect.
Okay.
Because it was all built on compromise between three different kind of races. So, you know what committees do? They ruin everything.
So Esther asks, what's the reaction of the citizens when she's not?
There's going to be a lot of shock. So then it's going to be a bit of a PR blitz to kind of sell the new guy, as it were.
And you kind of answered this. She's loved or hated.
So I think the kind of impact is she is well known to the public. She's quite, you know, well to do. The kind of brother who gets installed is kind of seen as like a bit of a fop, bit of a player. He doesn't take his position very seriously because he thinks, well, I'm never going to be king, so I can just go and sleep with whoever the hell I want because no one cares.
Yeah, well, that's a good place to be.
He's the Prince Harry, basically.
Don't we all want to be? Does she have ties with other species, or is she setting alliances with them?
Yes, that is very well observed, Esther. So she's quite well acquainted with the elf kind of government.
Okay.
Which means the kind of like the traditionalists at the capital are like, well, if she gets on the throne, she's going to kind of tip the balance against the scales that we want. So bye-bye. Get rid of you.
Okay.
Mhm.
So then how
Well,
far
hold on.
you answered
To
this one.
that point, though, then is the council more dwarf or more human than elf?
So the council we see at the beginning is fairly balanced, but once the kind of usurpation happens, it gets stacked with kind of sycophants.
Okay.
So someone's pressing the kind of scales in the opposite direction.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I think throughout this, what we kind of learn is neither the princess or the king or the princess's brother are really in control. It's other people kind of behind the scenes who are kind of really pulling all the strings, and they're coming up against that kind of structure.
okay. And I think Danette missed the inspo, so give her a
This book by this guy, he's lovely, by the way. He wrote a really good kind of fantasy book. I loved it. I thought, sod it, let's do it.
I thought this was a great question. So for Christiana, is she aware of the gap between the wealthy and the poor?
I want her to be aware of that because, again, that's going to kind of piss off the kind of traditionalists who are either aware of that gap and don't care about it or aren't aware. So the fact that she's kind of reaching out and is quite progressive, to be honest.
Who owns the land in this situation?
That's a good question. Why do you ask? Is
Is
it the rich?
Margaret's starting a union. Do you know what you consider the inciting incident?
Mm-hmm. The king dies.
Okay, I'm going to bring up something about that I had a note on. What's the motivation of the people pulling the strings? Money, land, magic.
So actually, if we kind of delve later on into this story, what we have is the dwarf kind of population, or the technological kind of like section of society. Oh, I'm going to write that down.
This is actually what I thought of.
So I will explain what the kind of whole kind of twist is. So the dwarves have discovered. So at this point, they've had like steam technology for a while. Everyone's all right with that. They've just discovered the next step from steam technology, which is crude oil. They've discovered that, and it's going to kind of almost transform their kind of power base.
It's like their leap forward.
Yeah, and then of course, guess where the biggest deposit of crude oil is going to be? Under the elf capital. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I see. So, okay, I see. So then it's okay.
So they're kind of now going to start gearing to actually kind of forget being nice to the elves. We just want to kind of invade their land.
We just need their land. Yeah.
Well, and see, that's where I felt like it was more a political or social thriller with fantasy elements than necessarily like full fantasy. When I was reading the synopsis and I got to that part, and then I got intrigued.
Yeah. And of course, we've got the kind of elf society being like the kind of at one with nature. They want to preserve nature. And you've got the kind of dwarf society where they live in their kind of mountains, belching smoke out and think, oh, they're sitting on a big thing of oil. We want it. Does that sound familiar at all, Barrett?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. Let's see. Oh, wait, let me go back. I have a few more starred. Hang on, I want to get to them. Are you suggesting that progress politics belong in the realms of fantasy? Progressive politics.
Shush.
What's the motivation of the people pulling the strings? Oh, we asked this.
Yeah, we just answered that.
I thought I had a new one. Oh, it's here. Sorry.
Oh, there's dinosaurs in this fantasy. Yeah, we're not going to go too far into where the kind of crude oil came from.
So there's...
I don't see why there couldn't have been dinosaurs millions of years before this story takes place.
Yeah. So, hey, I wanted to say something on the king's death.
Mm-hmm.
So on the illness, what specifically will it be?
Oh, basically, they dress it up as this kind of natural thing, but he's poisoned.
Okay. But you're going to make that more clear later.
Oh yeah, it's going to be that's going to be a big uncovering.
Oh, okay. Because that was something I was going to say is I didn't get what that was, and I thought you could make it clear.
That's why access to him is restricted to his closest advisor, which is the cardinal, who's been serving for many years. You'd never suspect him. But basically what happens is a group of powerful kind of lords say, right,
Doing that, Margaret.
you've got to do it. What did she say? Sorry.
No. Keep going. Keep going.
Thank you, Eva. Yeah, you do that. So basically they kind of say, oh, you can't see him, he's too ill for you to go anywhere near, but he's being poisoned. It's all been engineered. If that sounds a bit Game of Thrones, it probably is.
Okay. So so he's poisoned.
And there's a scene between the king and his closest advisor, the cardinal, where they both between it have it out and say, right, I'm gonna have to kill you now. And it's whether the other characters become aware of that. There's a good scene kind of later on where the new king, the kind of brother, gets made king, and they decide to start emptying all the libraries of stuff about the succession process to stop anyone asking questions.
I mean, that seems true to character. How many POVs? How many POVs? And this is going to take us to the other discussion.
4.
Okay, this takes us to the discussion about the blog post. Which, Richard, do you want to drop the link to that? So,
yes, I will do that right now. I will continue talking while I do that.
So why don't you discuss a little bit about the process you are using to write it, and it might explain why it has become somewhat biblical.
Sorry, biblical.
In length, in length, girth, width, depth. So we're at 250K. No, 92K. You're thinking.
Yeah, I'm kind of
when you're done.
Kind of realizing it's gonna be 200K plus as a finished draft. From that, I'm going to kind of pick out the bits to put in this particular book, if that makes sense. There's going to be quite a lot on the kind of cutting room floor. For use as later kind of material, or I can do what I want with it later. The way I'm looking at it is, if I've written it, I can then just pull it out, think, oh, here's a bonus chapter, subscribe to my newsletter. Subscribe to my newsletter, by the way.
Link below.
So at this point, so if you read my blog post, I talk about my kind of process for this one. So normally when you're doing a book, you'll write chapter 1 will be from the first point of view. Then you go to chapter 2, we'll write from the second point of view. Chapter 3 might be the third point of view. You kind of alternate as you're kind of drafting. For this book, I'm not doing that. It's why actually the chapters don't actually have numbers at the moment. They have it's like Act 1, A plot, chapter 1. Act 1, A plot, chapter 2. So each kind of particular plot, there's the A plot, the B plot, the C plot, the D plot. Martin, you get credit for that. So I'm writing all the chapters for one kind of part in one go for one character. So I write their whole arc for that act in one go. Then I switch. And then my kind of plan later on is to, when I finish that and I'm ready to kind of put a draft together in kind of reading order, is I will then not jumble the chapters up, but I will kind of put them into that kind of like cinematic reading order where you jump from one point of view to the other. But the reason I'm doing it this way is just to kind of reduce the mental load on me, because there's quite a lot of stuff to cover. I've kind of almost kind of outlined too much story for one book. So it's probably going to be a volume 1, volume 2 for this one.
Yeah.
But yeah,
remember that's kind of how the Bible ended up being, right? So
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't start a religion based on my book though. So
I wouldn't either. Yeah, from what I've read so far, I wouldn't either. I think we're gonna.
I mean, you can and worship me as God. I'm not going to say no to that. But yeah, this is a new kind of process for me. I'm trying it out on this project because I think anything to kind of reduce my kind of mental load so I can just write and have fun with it, the better. Whether it works out in the end, who knows? We'll watch this space. Does it now?
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because this seems harder to me. How has it been? Because this seems very difficult.
Well, because I worry about timeline.
Because
people change, as you're going because of interactions with other people. So if you're writing, say, like all of Christiana for the first act, and then you write all of Nicholas, and then something happens between Christiana and Nicholas, then do you have to go back and change Christiana because she's obviously going to be in a different place than for Act 2 because of that interaction.
I've tried not to actually have too many scenes be told from the same point of view, from different points of view. I have each kind of like event covered from one point of view, and that's it, to kind of avoid having to kind of retread the same steps, to have people like approaching it from two different directions. But that's a good point. I mean, that is going to kind of have to be ironed out once I've kind of put it in kind of the reading order, as it were, not the writing order.
Right.
I mean, at the moment, I'm just enjoying, I'm thinking, oh, I'm writing a Christiana section at the moment. Then I'll finish all of her section, move on to the next section. I'm really enjoying it, to be honest. It's something different. It just means I don't have to do all that head hopping between, oh, I've written their chapter, now I'm going into their chapter. What happened with them last time? It's I can write all of their chapters in one kind of like swoop, get out of their head, go into the next point of view's kind of head, write all their stuff. And I'll be honest, I probably couldn't do this if I wasn't using Scrivener, which I know Tiffany's a big fan of. Because if not, I would not be wanting to drag and drop all that stuff in Word, to be honest. So right. I am writing this in a very kind of non-linear fashion, which I didn't think I'd do. I've always been a very much a kind of linear, start at the beginning, end at the end kind of writer. But this has been an interesting kind of way of doing it.
I am going to ask the thing that I'm sure there's somebody in the chat getting ready to ask, but then did you outline or are you pantsing this?
I don't
oh, geez, if I was pantsing this, I'd be...
Pretty much kind of like that question, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the thing. So actually, this is my second time of trying to write this book. So last April, I did the first kind of like 40,000 words. I did that on a typewriter as well. You must remember my streams doing it on the typewriter. Click, 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 click. And that's good fun. But then I realized I actually want to start again, redo the outline in a lot more detail, and then do this instead of kind of trying to bolt it all back on. But yeah, I can appreciate where concerns of whether it's all going to line up at the end are coming from. I will, again, I have to cross that bridge when I come to it. I'm just kind of trusting my process at the moment. But in answer to your question, yeah, there is a significant amount of outlining that went on. I think I spent about 3 or 4 months last year just doing the outline from scratch. What I didn't want to do is have like an arbitrary deadline. So I started the first go of this book kind of a bit in a rush because I wanted to start writing it for Camp NaNoWriMo. Are we still allowed to talk about that, by the way?
Yes. I mean...
Well, they managed to cancel themselves last year. Anyway, I kind of rushed the outline for that first go, and I was like, I don't want to do that for the second go. So I just said, it takes as long as it takes, basically. It takes as long as it takes. So
you have the whole book outlined?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
I've got the whole book outlined from start to finish at scene level.
I mean, I guess it helps. That's probably makes it easier to write all one line. Right.
Oh yeah, I've got it all. Oh yeah, I've got it all at scene level on my kind of spreadsheets. And so
if you have it all outlined, if you have it all outlined from beginning to end, is that how you know that it's probably going to be a part 1, part 2 type of a conversation? Okay.
Yeah, the amount of kind of story I've got outlined and how I'm writing it at the moment just makes me think this is probably going to be a very long book. And I think also it's just being aware that I'm at 97,000 words already, and I'm about. Hold on, if I just pull it up.
You're about a fourth, right, or a third?
I'm about to tell you how much I've done. I've got a little thing on my spreadsheet that tells me how much I've completed.
You're just the tip. Excuse
me. Rude. That spreadsheet must be huge. It is, Esther. It is. But I have so far, as of saying this right now, I'm in Act 2 now. It's 5 acts, by the way, because I use the 5 commandments of story structure. So I have currently written 38% of this book, and it's at 97,000. So make of that what we want. Ben's here.
So you're at like, oh shoot, sorry.
Hands up.
Okay, wait. So you're at, okay, I gotta do the math on this because I'm a math person. All right, so you're at 97,000 1,000 words. And
That's
you're about
two.
two-thirds of the way through. No. You're
But wait, because that's 90,000 words, but from 4 POVs, right?
You're 2/5 of the way through. So, oh, girl, hold on.
Wait a minute, because that's 90,000 words, but it's 4 POV. So when you actually put them all together, it's less than that for the actual story.
Who wants to see my spreadsheet?
No. Morgan's like, yes.
Wow. Yeah, Richard, if you're going at the pace you're going to land this plane somewhere between 242.5 and 279.6 based on my loose calculation.
I'm a little bit proud of that.
You and the Word of God, man.
Again, what I would say is not all of that is going to end up in the finished book. But it's going to be there.
Esther also wants to see the spreadsheet.
Okay.
She thinks it's going to be 400K.
I mean, easy.
Yeah, I mean,
yes, epic fantasy for sure.
Wow.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Martin, when have I ever said that, by the way? But I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about that because I know I will find a point where I can, if I find I've got enough story in this kind of like big pot that I'm creating at the moment for 2 books, I'll have 2 books then. Easy.
I will say, I don't think from what I saw, I think as long as you're okay and open to like removing or cutting some, then I think you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not averse to writing more than I need and then just kind of trimming the fat off it. Because I think it's easier to kind of cut it out than to kind of pad it back out, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Because I'll have done all the work.
Right.
It'll be written. I'll be able to just sort of take bits like boom, boom, boom. I mean, as I'm writing, I'm already discovering that, I don't actually need to write that chapter. Puts a big X through it on the spreadsheet.
Right.
I also, then now knowing that with the word count that you probably are thinking you will end up at, in the first part of the prologue with the teacher, with Nicholas, where they're talking about the history of kind of the original war and how long ago it happened, and all of that. I would maybe actually like to see that information spread out a little bit more than it doesn't. It's not completely info dumpy, but I would like to see it kind of spread into and woven in a little bit more than necessarily just right there at the beginning.
That's fair enough.
Just to kind of build that, especially if you are looking at this more kind of like the character study that you mentioned before. I would like to feel for the characters and get to know the characters and understand the characters and be invested in the characters first, more so than I am the war that happened before and the war that could be coming. I would want to kind of be in their world and kind of in their skin and just be like, oh, okay, this is why we care. This is what's important. Yeah. A little bit more than, okay, there was the war before type of a concept.
And then kind of like what Esther said, making sure the prologue is not actually a chapter. So to me, when I'm thinking prologues, and this could just be me, it's either like something before or something in the future, and it's like a snapshot that has to like put like the little blip of what we're going to see later.
Yeah.
Something we need to know before. So make it more like an action scene, like a more immersive scene than someone telling us something, so it doesn't get info dumpy. It's more active, so that we can just get a snapshot of something. Like if it was from the war a long time ago, like an actual battle scene or the ending of the war or the signing of a treaty or something that ended the war.
That could be good.
Yeah, something
that'd be really nice. Like say it like at the beginning at that war, or maybe what Tiffany was saying earlier, we see Christiana sneaking to see her father without permission, and she learns that something's afoot.
Yeah, either something in the past or something that's coming that we need to see.
Yeah,
and
and
get
what
us
I can just do with this prologue that I've got, I can just use it as a prequel novella. Sign up to my newsletter.
You also Richard Craig, you are like the best at promoting your newsletter, like for real. Like for me, if I were gonna do kind of the thing that I suggested with the Christiana sneaking in and seeing the father, then I almost would skip the part about learning the father has died.
Yes.
I would just go from the prologue of her like finding out that, or like getting in to see the father, he telling her be careful of this person, blah 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 blah, and then I would go straight into maybe the chapter 1 being her finding out that she may not be queen.
Yeah.
And then be like, oh my God, how, where, why, type of a thing, and figuring it out from there.
Because so far we've got a little later on in the book, we've got a lot of like Christiana finds that she's being shut out, she's not being told stuff, she's being kind of confined to her kind of like apartment, and she's a bit like, is this actually happening or not? What's going on?
Yeah. And I think that would set up some of the mystery element of the fantasy or the thriller, whichever way you decide to go with it, and the political intrigue of it.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, even as the reader, you're like, wait a minute. She was just talking to her father. He was king. He was telling her what to do when she
and what happened?
Power. And now she's not at power.
And then we reveal later on that the king was poisoned or dead or whatever.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I like that too. I think, and I think, especially since you're so good at doing sort of laying the groundwork for a mystery or like making us wonder what's happening, the more you can do to not reveal something until the very last possible moment, the better. So if you can draw
tension,
just draw it out as much as possible to make them think it's hers until the very last moment, to where she's sure it's hers, and then sort of it's let the reader sort of think it's hers until the very last moment. It's gone, like almost the last sentence, right?
So there is a scene where I don't think it was in the extract I sent you, where basically Nicholas discovers in the middle of the night they're crowning her brother in and what they've basically done is they've basically finagled this to say, oh, we need to do it in secret right now because of security concerns, etc., etc. So that's why they do it in secret. So he literally chances upon this kind of thing in the throne room in the middle of the night, goes and gets her. She walks in just as the crown's going on his head. Oh, by the way, the crown's magical.
Oh, okay. There's your fantasy element.
There you go.
So maybe do that.
The crown's magical.
Maybe do where Christiana sneaks in, she sees the king, there could be confrontation between her and the cardinal when he sees her in there, and they're kind of dragging her out. Maybe the king's like, be careful, or something. And then like the first chapter starts with Nicholas seeing that they're about to crown the brother and they're rushing to go find her. And then that's where you find the magical element, is when she walks in and he's putting the crown on there, and the people see or the readers see the magic.
I think that's a really good idea. I think the trouble I've kind of had in the first kind of act or so of this book is a lot of it is getting the chess pieces in the right place. And that's what's taken up a lot of words, basically. But yeah, I can see that.
But show, don't tell, kind of the idea, because this feels like you're telling who should be important. I would rather you show me who's important.
Mm-hmm.
So show me that Cardinal has this type of power. Show me that Christina is about to lose everything, or Christiana. Show me that I can't get her name right for anything. Show me Nicholas is important, or why he's not as important as his family thinks he is, but we know he's important.
Or if for example, if Christiana is going to see her dad and she's not supposed to see him, and the cardinal's coming out of the dad's room, Christiana would duck back and hide. Because
I like that. That's a good scene.
Want him to see her. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, and then there's nothing said. There's no dialogue, but you're telling the audience she can't be seen. Does that? Do you know?
Yeah,
What
I love writing scenes like that where it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Then you don't have to say anything, but you're signaling that something's happening. The other thing I love, someone said something, or someone made a suggestion about the crown, happening, and that's magical. Another way to show without telling that the crown's magical, you could have 2 crowning ceremonies. So she could think that she's being crowned, especially if you want to show and not tell that the crown is magical. If she's being crowned and nothing happens, then she's just figured out she's gotten played. So
that could be a really nice way of doing it,
that's
because
another way to do that, right?
it could distract her while they're crowning the real king.
That's
Because
right.
my idea for the crown is that it was created as like a fusion between the dwarves, the elves, and the humans.
Like that.
Well, there was a moment at the kind of pretend coronation. Well, what happens is they have the coronation in secret in the middle of the night, and then they think, oh, let's throw a big kind of not a coronation ball at the cathedral for the public to see. It's called the Blessing of the King ceremony. And there's a moment where either the crown is nearly dropped or someone stumbles publicly, and it's like, that wasn't good. My idea for the crown was, as it's a kind of magical artifact fashioned from the humans, the elves, and the dwarves, it has a bit of a magical energy to it. And because it knows it's being placed on the head of someone who shouldn't really be wearing it, it's going to have a bit of a negative influence on them, leading them to kind of question their decisions a little bit. It's not going to be a kind of like really overt, like magical glow kind of thing. It's going to kind of make this kind of false king kind of second guess himself. And I don't know if that sounds like a good idea.
No, I think it can be.
Yeah, I was like, I divert to.
It's a bit like the crown is subtly rejecting this guy because it knows
like slowly poisoning him because he's not supposed to.
Yeah, it's driving him mad.
Yes, that's the precious thing, or like the Harry
Potter,
like
the sorting hat.
Yeah.
I also like you said the ball, like maybe, or the coronation ball, that could even be the scene where like you have the beginning prologue and then it starts at the coronation ball. Everybody's there, so you have all of your chess pieces in place. You have the cardinal, you have Nicholas, you have Christiana, you have the brother, like the council, all the people there. And then at the last moment, maybe the end of the scene or the end of something, when they're like, calling for the coronation, and Christiana thinks she's walking up, or they're like something, they're like, and introducing, maybe it's like a big show or something, and then the brother walks in with the crown, or they're getting ready to crown him or something.
I really like that idea. Like
it's like, and then the whole, like all of your people are there to show.
But whether I'd have to redo her knowing that she'd found her brother being crowned in the middle of the night, we'll see. Because my current version of that has her kind of being forced to watch her brother take the limelight. But that's a good idea to play with.
Esther also has, is her brother the only family she has left?
So yes, it's going to be the king and his 2 children. The mother is going to be dead, obviously. There's only going to be 2 children.
The other idea could be, if it doesn't make him mad, it could be that the magic doesn't work right.
Yeah,
it could be that whatever the magic is supposed to be, or however it's supposed to work, it won't quite work right. So whatever is supposed to happen, it doesn't. The intended consequence isn't right.
Yeah.
So that's another idea where it doesn't make him.
I actually kind of think that there is a kind of arc for the brother as well, because he is widely seen before he becomes king as like, oh, he's just this kind of player. He just kind of takes the piss all the time, and when he becomes king, he kind of knows he's a puppet, but he kind of begins to think, actually, I could be quite good at this, and he initially becomes a bit more assertive in that role, and the powers that be become irritated with him. They're like, listen, the deal was you just sit there and we do everything. You just kind of sit there and shut up. But I kind of want him to have a little bit of almost like a redemption arc, that he's aware that people see him as inferior to his sister, but he wants to give this a go, if that makes sense. He's like complicit in the fact that he knows he's a puppet. He knows he's being kind of played. He knows the shadowy people in private actually doing all the kind of ruling and decisions. But as time goes on, he gets kind of like, he thinks, actually, you know what? Maybe I can make some decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And initially, his kind of suggestions get laughed off, like, oh, yeah, but go and play over there. And
Mm-hmm.
eventually, he starts to say, actually, no, I want to get more involved. So I kind of feel that's a kind of almost a nice kind of redemption arc for this character, who you start off not liking because he's stolen the crown from, or the throne from, the princess,
Mm-hmm.
but he kind of grows into it a little bit.
Okay, I like that.
So again, it's trying to make him more than just this
That
kind of
could
like one-dimensional
be
character.
that could be how the crown maybe corrupts, is that he knows that he's the puppet, but once like the crown on the right head, you know, let's say like with Christiana, it would just empower her kindness or whatever, or
Yeah.
like the way that she's always dealt with the people around the
Mhm.
land. But with him, it doesn't necessarily make him power hungry, but it makes him kind of feel this desire to take control,
Yeah.
to push and to make sure that people know he's the one that's in charge. And
Yeah.
then that's where he goes from like being the puppet to being kind of maybe narcissistic in his goals and everything he's thinking. And then maybe when he sees what's happening, then that's where that redemption arc kind of comes from, and he
Yeah.
kind of figures it all out or something like that.
That's
There's
good.
going to be a moment later on in the book where he has to basically sign a document dissolving the kind of union, and that's going to be the moment where he thinks it's actually the right decision to make, but he kind of feels like he's gone too far at this point to not do it. And that's where the kind of this particular book's going to kind of end with the war kind of breaking out. So this whole book is about trying to stop this war from kicking off, all the kind of intrigues at play, but it ends up ultimately being unsuccessful. So then it becomes almost like damage limitation.
Wow.
So I mean, there is going to be, because we talk about this throughout this book, thinking, if this all goes, if we're at kind of really precipitous time in our nation's history, you know, this could go one of two ways. If it goes one way, it means millions are going to get like killed or whatever. And it does happen. You know, the war, it does happen. It's about how our characters eventually react to that and kind of mitigate it. That's probably going to be in the second, well, say book, the second big, huge thing I'm going to be working on some point. That's kind of my aspirations for it. Is it's going to be like this kind of war thing has been going on for years before we join the story. It's kind of almost unstoppable.
Yeah.
It's about how we kind of steer that kind of like train one way or the other.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying writing this, by the way. I'm having such a blast with this.
It kind of shows. This is, you know, you have fun talking about it, so it shows. I think it's a, you know, it's a great idea. There's a lot of words, so there's a lot of words for you to read and go. No, I'm excited for you. It's going to be fun. So I'm excited.
I'm not worried about the word count at all at this point because of my strategy.
I'm just teasing you, Richard.
Listen,
no, excited for you. Ben, remember, you told me you'd never write fantasy, so never say never.
I did years ago. I said I'd never write fantasy. I thought, what do I know? All I've got to do is make it steamy somehow, then I can dress it up as a romantasy. It's nice being happy because this has been my kind of like therapy project as well. From those who remember my last appearance, nearly had everyone crying in the aisles. This has been a really good kind of experience for me. Yeah.
Well, good.
Yay!
We'll be
It's going to take me
excited.
forever to get this finished, by the way.
Well,
I don't really care. It takes as long as it takes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That there's no timeline on any of it.
And sometimes we need a passion project, even if it's just for us.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. The thing is, I definitely want people to read this because I think this could potentially be. I don't want to sound really egotistical here. This could be my best work so far.
Are you going to be sharing a spreadsheet on
Do
your?
we want to see the spreadsheet?
I mean, these people are clamoring.
If I were you, I'd say it's next month's newsletter, but.
Oh no, they can look at it now. They can look at it now.
Here we go. Oh my gosh, you even have charts?
I've got like a dashboard at the top.
Hold on, I'm gonna get us off screen so we can just see this.
Oh dear God.
Oh wow.
You can see here's the whole book.
You guys, I do actual budgets for my job, and my spreadsheets aren't this organized.
This is spoiled, by the way.
That is impressive.
I am
That
still on
is-
And it tells
stuff.
me here how much I've written. Tells me how much is each plot line, how much each act
Wow.
is, the spread.
You know,
and I've got my
I don't-
focus stuff here.
I'm actually going to change my feedback. If someone has done outlining like this, you go on and write 295. I'm 100%. I'm fine with it.
Wow.
All this makes
Oh my
makes
God.
sense to me.
Wow.
I almost want like you to do a template so I can do that.
I wouldn't even know what to put in it if he did a template.
I pay for it.
I am just like, look at this. Spread those sheets. I am
I mean,
just, I don't even have words.
But this has actually been really helpful when I'm kind of writing. I can see what I've got to do. All this makes sense to me. I've even put notes, etc. Even these are like chapters that get cut out when I've kind of decided I don't need them. So it all kind of works out.
I got an. Is this the whole thing, or is this just Act 1?
Oh, this is the whole book, by the way.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
Wow. Me looking at my reading spreadsheet, I've already fallen really behind on. Yeah, a template. Yeah. I would never be
I
able
mean,
to-
I know we could do this in Notion too. I'm just like, huh?
Wow.
I am very pleased you're all impressed.
Yeah. I mean, I've never seen one that big. Okay. So,
Oh, I'm sure you have, Barrett. I'm sure you have.
oh, no, I haven't.
I mean,
except in
that would
Tiffany's
make
book.
your eyes water.
The power of Excel. Ben, wow.
I've impressed Ben.
Google Sheets could never.
Google Sheets that's like the Diet Pepsi.
Screenshot has been
Fat
taken.
Coke.
Wow. All right. Well, a
I'm
gauntlet
still
has,
stuck.
been thrown.
I
I'm
have
just gonna
shocked
lean back.
Tiffany into silence.
Well, I will say this: if folks out there want a template, you will have to sign up for Richard's newsletter.
You will.
That is the only place one.
I think I should sell that template on Ko-fi.
I
I
definitely
think these people would buy it. Yeah.
that.
I
Yeah.
had an 8-book fantasy to outline.
But this is making writing this book really easy because I'm like, I know what I've got to write. It's like, oh, what scene am I doing now? Oh, that scene. Right, off we go. Boom. There we are.
I am massively impressed.
Mm-hmm.
It's even got tick boxes and everything.
Yeah, you could make good money on that. That's something. Deidre, you just missed a big one. I mean, really big.
Deidre, you have to go back and look at the spreadsheet.
It's
I'm still
something to
right here.
It was really big. Okay, I'm gonna let everybody do an outro. Richard, thank you so much for coming. Come back when you get this thing done. Or before.
I'll be back. The Terminator said, "I'll be back."
Yes, you will. You missed the spreadsheet. It is a mother load of spreadsheets too. I am gonna let everybody outro. Tell us what's going on. I'm gonna start with Tiff. We'll round robin. We'll go Richard and then Morgan. Tiff,
I don't know if I can speak still.
Well, you can just say I'm speechless.
What was the question? What am I talking about?
We're saying goodbye.
Who are you? What's next? What's coming up for you?
Oh, okay. I know those things. I'm Tiffany TL Russ. Hey, I think I'm streaming this Thursday for PJs and Scribbles. I probably should get that up on the interwebs so you guys can come hang out. After that, I think there should be a book release either at the end of this month, beginning of next month, and then next month we have Small Town World. I think those are my main things that I have coming up. So, yay!
It's your turn,
It's
Richard.
you, Richard.
Oh, sorry. Whoops. I'm Richard Holliday. I'm the author of various books. Let's go through them, shall we? I wrote this a little while ago. That was good fun. This is like the bloody prologue to Legacy of Iron, is that? Then I wrote this, and my most recent release is this one. And go check it out and sign up to my newsletter. I'm going to have some other stuff coming out because this is going to take a while. I'm dusting off some other projects that haven't seen the light of day, but will do. Oh, fun, Esther. Well done. Enjoy. And it's been really fun chatting about my book with these three lovely people. I've definitely got some good ideas for streamlining it and going forward. And we shall see what happens. If you sign up to my newsletter, I might start posting excerpts of this. Who knows? We'll see what happens, shall we? That's the end of my outro. Goodbye.
I'm Morgan Lee. I have a YouTube channel and 2 books, the first 2 in a dark fantasy trilogy. Coming up is the Author to Poetry open mic night with JC on her channel on April 27th at 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. Our sign-up sheet is on both of our community tabs, so come and do some poems. And for a poetry month in April on my channel, I think I forgot what date we said, but the second Saturday, I think, in April, we're going to do a poetry workshop. So you can come and write some poetry so you can share it on the 27th.
Yay.
My spreadsheet.
I know.
My life for a spreadsheet.
It was very satisfying. Well, definitely don't miss the poetry stuff. Tiff's got a book dropping. It was lovely seeing all of you all. I love and miss you all terribly, and I hope we can all hang out soon. Be well. We'll see you later.